middle of the page. So the Gemara mentioned that the idea of the 19th bracha when it was added, and it discussed the fact that Shmuel HaKatan was the one who instituted it. He was the author of it, and I gave you an interesting explanation of why it was him. They couldn't find anyone to author it, and the reason was because, at least one of the explanations, is that Shmuel was the one who promoted that when your friend is falling, you should not be happy. He did not like the idea of enjoying someone, when your enemy falls, you shouldn't be happy. He didn't like the idea of rejoicing over your enemy's failure. And because of that, they said he's the right one to be unbiased, to institute this prayer against the minim. What it seems like is the rabbis who were so angry at the minim that they felt that maybe they wouldn't be fully sincere. In other words, because the minim were totally against them. The minim, they were initiating other religions, and the rabbis are the ones who are holding up Yiddishkeit. So they felt that they didn't want to be the ones to write it, and therefore Shmuel HaKatan, who in the Pirkei Avos says, "Ben afolei bechal tismach," when your enemy falls, don't be happy. That they felt he was the right one who was like unbiased. He would write it sincerely. So he wrote it. He established it. But the problem was a year later, or sometime later, L'shana Acheres, another year, he ended up
forgets the blessing.
He ended up
from Yamud and
being
forgets
the chazan, and he forgot that bracha.
Right.
And so they had to wait a long time until he finally remembered it. And the Gemara's discussion is, shouldn't they have thrown him out of being the chazan? They should have kicked him out and said, goodbye, we'll have another chazan. Because that bracha, when someone makes a mistake, we always get nervous that they might be a min. If they make a mistake in that bracha, we have to be concerned, where we suspect maybe they themselves are a min, they're a person who's denying Hashem, and therefore, or serving another god, and therefore they should have kicked Shmuel HaKatan out of being chazan. So the Gemara wants to say that.
Rabbi, 2-3 hours, that's an awful long time. It's half a day.
But he was trying to remember during that time.
It does seem surprising. I was also a little surprised. I was wondering if maybe the Steinsaltz or the Art Scroll might say sha'os doesn't mean hours, but it means moments. But I don't know. I didn't hear anyone say anything. So I assume they're translating it as hours. Because Shah sometimes means like a moment.
But that's what's written in Talmud.
It says sha'os, but sha'os doesn't always mean hours.
Oh.
I'm not sure. I think it sometimes
Maybe
means
they had short
periods of time. Like
maybe they
moments.
had short daytime hours.
Right. Well, an hour could be 45 minutes, but even
That's
then,
what I'm saying, yeah.
even a 45-minute hour is definitely a very long time. It is surprising that they didn't try to help him out. I mean, you could have written it in that time. They could have had someone in the congregation write it and let him read it from the writing,
Yeah.
So it does seem surprising. I was a little surprised also when it says that. Thanks for bringing up this question. I was thinking about this, but I guess no one says anything. David, does the Steinsaltz say anything that shows maybe? different than an hour? Maybe it could mean moments.
No, it says hours, 2 to 3 hours.
Uh-huh.
People
No
didn't
notes
have
on it.
papyrus, Rabbi.
What is that?
People didn't have paper in those days. It's not like we have these days. You can't say, oh, let's go to the store and buy a ream of paper, whatever it is, It's,
Right.
Somebody could have whispered in his ear.
Right. Right. Unless you say that maybe the whole congregation was ignorant.
Right. Maybe nobody remember.
And the person who's davening was the one who knew the tefillot by heart, because there was nothing written in those days.
Right. So my question is, maybe that's the explanation, that there was no one else knew it well. But that is definitely a surprising thing, that they would have had to wait 2 or 3 hours. Very surprising. So in any event, I don't know the answer. Why didn't they? That is a good question.
But in the Steinsaltz, he says the same thing, 2-3 hours.
Right. And the art scroll doesn't say anything either. Right. So in any event, the Gemara says that we have a rule the Gemara initially says, well, Shmuel HaKatan instituted this prayer. We don't think that he would ever go against it. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? Maybe he changed his views. And so Abaye says, no, we have a rule that someone who's very righteous, they don't turn bad, they don't spoil.
Right.
And the Gemara asks, what do you mean? There's a verse that says people do turn back. So the Gemara says that's only someone who initially
Was wicked.
was
before.
evil, and afterwards it's possible.
What?
I'm not sure what you're saying. This is the first time I've gotten a little insight over here from our friend Betzalel, but he says one moment of tshuva in mitzvahs is better than olam haba. Now, what does that have to do with this? You'll have to share it in words. We can't understand that.
Sha'achas, the tshuva, and Maitzi and Tovi.
He doesn't hear you.
There's the word shah in this case means a moment.
So shah does mean moment. Thank you, Ezra. Right, but the Gemara, thank you. But the question is, why doesn't the art scroll? That's what why doesn't the art scroll? Why don't they translate it that way?
Yeah. Maybe it's because makes for a better story.
It is interesting that it does say b'sha'a chada uveriga chada. When it talks about tshuva, this would maybe be interesting to Betzalel, that there is a term b'sha'a chada uveriga chada. It does use the term moment over there, that it says yafe sha'a achas tshuva ma'asim tovim kol chayil haba. Well. Yafasha achas, does it mean a moment? I guess it does. Yeah, that's the shot.
Interesting, very interesting.
Okay, in any event, yeah, that's good that he mentioned that. Okay, so in any event, so the question is, Shmuel we was never wicked in the beginning, Shmuel HaKatan, and therefore the Gemara assumes that that's why they didn't kick him off from being the Chazan. Now the Gemara says that isn't there a term that al tamen biatzmacha ad yom moischa, you're never supposed to trust yourself until the day of your passing, because Yochanan Kohen Gadol. So we have a story of Yochanan Kohen Gadol, who was a Kohen Gadol for many years, 80 years, and yet he became a tzedukah in the end. Again, the term tzedukah that we just translated in the beginning. So we see Yochanan Kohen Gadol did become a tzedukah. So the Gemara answers that view that Yanai and Yochanan is the same person. And Yanai was a wicked king who came from the was not a from Yehuda. He was a kohen. He was from the Chashmei Noam. And at one point, he got very angry and he killed out the rabbis. And so he was very wicked. So the Gemara says that he was Yochanan Kohen Gadol. He was wicked. He turned righteous. He was served for 80 years as Kohen Gadol, and then he became wicked again. So according to that, it's not a problem. We could say that that's when it says, don't trust yourself. It's referring to Yochanan Kohen Gadol because he was once wicked before. But according to the other view that says Yanai and Yochanan were two separate people, so it's impossible to say that just because someone was, if someone turned bad later, it's because they were once right, they were once wicked in the beginning. No, you can have people who are very righteous. It's possible that they'll turn wicked, and therefore maybe Shmuel HaKatan, who instituted the bracha against the minim, maybe he changed his views, and that's why he made mistake. That's why he made a mistake when he was standing as chazan. And the Gemara answers that it must be that there's a difference over here. Rava says that there's a this is different. This case is talking about that he started the bracha properly. Once he started the bracha properly, we know he didn't change his views. Since he started it properly, therefore, we assume that we trust that he is really not a min, and he's not changing his views, and therefore we wait till he finishes it. So that is the conclusion of this Gemara, and that basically is the discussion of the bracha of the Lamalshinim. Sorry for taking up